Welcome everyone to Chromatic Counsel. I am your host, Carrie Heaps, and I am so excited that you're here with us today. I've got a great episode lined up for you. If you are interested in being a guest on Chromatic Counsel, feel free to click on the show notes below. I have a feedback form, a entry form that you can fill out to be considered as a guest. If you are within the legal industry, whether you're an attorney, paralegal, if you service the legal industry, we would love to talk with you. So be sure to check that out after the show. And if you haven't clicked on the subscribe button, please do so now. We always appreciate when people subscribe to the channel and leave comments. But today I've got a great show. I have Eda Rosa as my guest, and I'm very excited. I actually met Eda at a conference we both spoke at the Florida Justice Association. I believe it was last year or the year before last. But Eda is the driving force behind Eda Rosa LLC, a legal consulting company specializing in operations management and staff training, with over 2 decades of experience aiding attorneys nationwide in efficient caseload management, creating reliable legal education programs, and improving client relationships. She founded Eda Rosa LLC on the principle of universal professionalism. She also is the host of Let's Talk Paralegal podcast, a really great show. Be sure to check that out. And she's the author of the Let's Talk Paralegal book and an active member of organizations like Lean In and various other legal organizations as well. Eda, welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for having me. It's so cool to actually interact with you in so many different platforms because, like you mentioned, we saw each other in a speaking engagement. Then you were on my podcast. I'm on your podcast. So I just love how we just help each other out and we're just, surrounded in the same circles, which I feel kind of unifies the circle of the legal industry. So I'm really appreciative of you and everything that you have done for me and the company and vice versa. Hopefully, I've done much for you too.
You have, and it's just been such a pleasure getting to know you. I know when we both spoke, I think, to the paralegals at the Florida Justice Association in Orlando, and I think it was last year, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and it was a great show, and we just kind of connected, and I kept your information, and it kind of grew. We connected on LinkedIn, and it grew from there. So, but you've been doing so many wonderful things. But if you wouldn't mind just telling the listening audience a little bit more about you and your business background, what kind of brought you to where you're at today?
Yes. So I originally started in the legal industry as a billing clerk, and I worked my way up the ladder. I essentially ended up on my 15th year as a CEO paralegal, which is where I got my nickname, the CEO paralegal, because I was basically an executive paralegal running the events for this high-end boutique law firm in downtown Fort Lauderdale. And I would run the events, I would run the team, I would do all the things kind of like a CEO would. So I eventually got the CEO paralegal, and then I became my own CEO, which is now called Eda Rosa LLC. And I opened up the podcast. I'm going on my third book now in next year, and I've done just various things throughout. But the bulk and the heartbeat of what Eda Rosa LLC is in a nutshell is basically being a paralegal advocate, providing that voice back to the paralegal. Because I remember as a litigating paralegal, I found myself sometimes in rooms that either I wasn't welcomed or I had to sit there because of X, Y, and Z reason, or I pushed myself in there because I wanted to learn more about strategizing and learning about our cases that we're managing so that I could become a better paralegal. Sometimes that was welcomed and sometimes it wasn't. And so that led me to what I do now, which is consulting for law firms and training their staff, creating operations and processes where everybody can feel heard and seen and appreciated.
Mhm. I love that. And I know you focus just, mainly on with your business with the paralegals. And to someone too, and I think some people know this, some people don't, but prior to going out on my own, I actually worked for attorneys too. I worked as a legal assistant. And I think a lot of people, which the attorneys are super important, we need them. We need them advocating for the public. We need them to navigate the judicial system that is getting more and more and more complicated. And also, I think not flowing well. There's a lot of problems there, but that's a conversation for another day. But I don't think a lot of people realize that it's behind the scenes where if you want to get a will done, if you want to have a purchase agreement drawn up, that yes, the attorney, the people who are actually putting all of that together, it's the back team, the paralegal, it's the legal assistants. And is that kind of what drew you to kind of just, you're centered around paralegals? Is that kind of part of the
Yeah.
reason why?
I feel like the paralegals are the heartbeat of the law firm. We're their customer service. We're the ones that provide that, white glove treatment or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it depends on the customer service. That's really where the money comes from. I call it the either barber if you go to barber shops or the nail salon if you go to a nail salon,
Mm-hmm.
whichever. We're all inclusive here. However, how do you choose these? How do you choose a barber shop? How do you choose a nail salon? Most likely your ideal choice would be the way that you're being treated and the outcome of whatever it is you're trying to get done. So if your nails are all messed up, but you had great customer service, you're more likely to give them a second or third shot because the customer service was on point. They provided you a refund, they provided you with another nail tech or another barber, whatever the case may be, they try to fix the, wrong. And so really how I see law firms, right? So law
Mm-hmm.
firms are all different types and sizes. There's different types of services and practices and all the things. How do you choose the right fit for you? And what, on the other coin, what can you do to set yourself apart from the numerous law firms that are out there, especially in the United States? So that is your customer service. That is how your team is set up, how your processes and operations and everything that goes along with the business side of the law firm. That's really what's going to set you apart because you can invest all you want on marketing. And I know you touch upon that, especially on appearance and branding. And
Mm-hmm.
all that is valid, all that is important. I'm not taking away from that. But what happens when all of that really turns out to be really, really well, and it turns out to your favor, but your team's not ready, or doesn't have the right operations, or doesn't have the right processes? Well, then that creates bigger gaps in your process, right? And that is where the miscommunication comes from, the bar complaints, and all the other things that we don't like to talk about when it comes to the business part of law firms.
And that brings up kind of a side question for you, if you don't mind, because I do agree with you. The customer service that law firms provide, whether they want to admit it or not, that is still part of their image. Yes, you have the image that you see
Yeah.
in front of you, but how you are treated is an extension. That communication is still part of your image. I'm glad that you do work with people on that process because it's amazing to me, not just law firms, but how many businesses you call into nowadays that they don't even have, it's like an automated system. No one calls you back. There is zero follow up, or you get 1,001 emails and text and you can never get anybody on the phone. And it's such a turnoff. But my question is this: I see a lot right now, and I guess it's, again, it's that time of year, but there are so many law firms that are hiring across the country. I try to share that as much as I can, on my LinkedIn profile. If I see something, I'll reshare it. And of course, we have a free job posting board on my site for, the continuing legal education. People can go on there and place a free ad, no cost to them, and it goes out to different networks. But I think we all need to help each other as much as we can. However, I notice there's so many openings for paralegals and legal assistants. What would you say? Like, what would be do you have like maybe one or two tips that you would say to a lawyer or a big law firm that's wanting to add to their team? They need another paralegal. Maybe they're growing, or maybe it's turnover. What would be one or two things that you would say, hey, you're hiring? Here's two things I would tell you to make the process better or to make it, easier for the applicants. Like, do you have any advice for those that are hiring right now?
So I think the number one, let's start with the mistakes, right? Let's start with why they're hiring. So if it is for turnover, that means there's a big gap either in the environment that you're providing for the law firm or your process. So you need to figure that out first. Where is the gap? Where is the bottleneck? Why are these people leaving? Is it lack of leadership? Is it the type of leadership? Is
Mhm.
there both, right? It could be both. It could be lack and the type of leadership. So really understanding your team and having that hard conversation with them, trying to see you may have your team member right within your team now. A legal assistant may be interested in moving up to being a paralegal, or the lead paralegal might be interested in moving up to management. So whatever position you're trying to fill, have that conversation with your team have a team meeting and then identify the bottlenecks, identify where there may be a big gap, where misunderstandings could be. Do we need to invest in another legal practice management software? Are we not getting enough data? Are we not getting, or is our intake process, converting our clients? Is that kind of what's happening? So identifying your bottlenecks and where those gaps are within your process, I would start out first because
Mhm.
in turn, that's where you can find out where you can fill those gaps and how you can fill those gaps.
Mhm.
Now, if you've already done that and you have an amazing process, you have a strong team, and you're scaling and you're growing, so you need more paralegals because of the influx of business. Well, kudos to you. You've gone halfway. The other half is the onboarding. What are you looking for? What does this position look like? And what is their day-to-day task? Because that's really where they fail. A lot of the clients that come to us, the first thing they say is, I want a superstar paralegal. And I was like, well, what does that mean to you? Because what a superstar paralegal is to you may not be to somebody else. So what
Mhm.
are you looking for? What are you trying to fill? What does this day to day look like for this particular position, regardless of the position that you're trying to fill? All these questions you must ask first before putting the position out there. Because what's going to happen is it's kind of, I call it like a dating app, right? So you put out, your best picture, your top hobbies and all the fancy stuff, right?
Mhm.
And all of a sudden it's like, well, I mean, is that really me though? Do I really like walks on the beach? Not really. During June and July, it's excruciating, huh? I prefer to be indoors and things like that.
Mhm.
So really understand what you're actually looking for in order to identify and actually create a coherent job description so that you can attract the talent that you actually need, not somebody that you think you need.
Mhm. That's a great point. And and I think again, I think anybody that's listening that's wanting to add to their team, and would you also say burnout for the paralegals, that that's a big part of it too, that they should be more aware of burnout, or do you feel that's more on the attorney side?
So burnout is all inclusive, right? It's either the seasoned paralegal that's been there long enough to know that, oh my goodness, I'm over this. It's been the same for X amount of years, and I'm just tired of the same thing over and over. Or
Mhm.
it's the person that's coming in brand new or in mid-career, and they are already anxious, right? But
Mhm.
that has a lot to do with your process and operations, right? That has a lot to do how you're running the team. Are you putting too much pressure on your team? Are you asking too much, too little, or not enough, right? Depending
Mhm.
on what it is, because burnout can work both ways. I remember when I was a paralegal, I had burnout at two ends of my career. So at the beginning, where it was kind of like a sink or swim scenario, I didn't get any proper training. I was shadowing this person. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea what the software was like. Even though I had worked on that software, they were using that and utilizing that software completely different than the prior law firm I was working at. So those are things that you need to take into consideration. Not everybody learns the same. Some people are visual learners, some people are verbal learners, some people are lecturers. You got to understand that you have to create a cohesive training module for these people that you're bringing in. You can't just throw them in there and say, hey, sink or swim. It just doesn't work that way. Life is not supposed to be that way. And if you want them to excel, you need to give them those tools. And then the other end of that, with the seasoned paralegal that has been there long enough, you need to continue to cultivate that. You need to
Mhm.
provide them with that continuing education and that continuous training when you're changing LPMs, legal practice management softwares, or CRMs, or when you are scaling, or whenever that is, you need to have your team be part of all those pivotal moments. Because if they don't feel a part of that, then they feel out of it. And that's where the burnout, that's where the anxiety comes in. That's where the reduction of production and the high turnover start, because then they start getting into their head. Why am I not being included in something that I'm such a pivotal impact in? And why am I not included in these conversations? Why are they making these decisions without our, knowledge and our ideas? Why are we not having a conversation as a team? Because I thought that's what we were. And these are the things that they're thinking about in the background that they're not going to tell you because they're afraid to get fired. And
Mhm.
so understanding your team and really having those not end of the year bonuses, I am a total non-believer of that. In our company, we give gifts to our clients throughout the year. So for wedding anniversaries, for birthdays, for anything that we feel is an important thing, especially our clients have children and we're always getting invited to their birthday parties and things like that. And we try to be as more, a tailored effect. And that's kind of how you guys have to be. You don't have to go to their birthday parties. I'm not saying you have to do all that, but you do have to be a part of your team. You have to understand who they are. Are they saving up for something? Why are they saving up for something? Really understand your team as the person, not as the skills and education. So what's outside of the resume? That's really what you need to focus on in order to prevent the burnout.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. That is so wonderful that your services that you'd really help the law firms with that. I want to switch gears for a minute because obviously this is chromatic counsel and I love to talk about color. But what are some of your kind of go-to colors? Like if you have a client meeting with an attorney or with a big law firm or maybe you're hiring somebody, like what are your go-to colors? What do you typically like to wear?
I've always been, so I was born in September, so I'm a sapphire. However, that's sometimes too dark. It looks almost black. So what I have gone to is like a royal blue. And so I love my royal blue. It looks really good on my skin. And it gives me that confidence boost that sometimes you kind of need, to kind
Mhm.
of get rid of the jitters and kind of cut through, the fear and really move forward and feel in charge. Another color that I really love is red. I even dyed my hair red. I know you can't see it because I have my ponytail up today, but
Well, I've seen you
I
in
thought,
person, so yeah, it
yeah.
looks so good on you. Yeah.
I love red. It's always something that I've enjoyed having. And so I started playing around with some colors and I really enjoy the red as well. However, red is very vibrant, very alert for a reason. That's why cops and firefighters, they have them on their, lights and on their trucks. So I try to kind of calm it down with another color, which is usually a more neutral color, like a black or something like that. Mixing those two colors, I love red and black. I love how they go together and how they kind of contrast each other, which I love that. But yeah, royal blue, I would say would probably be my definite go-to. It's also one of the colors of our company, so it works out. I represent the
Absolutely.
company. I give myself
Yeah.
confidence. It works.
Yeah. And if you found like even like with the royal blue, like if you wear that suit to a client meeting, are you finding it's kind of like a good luck suit, like you're finding you're closing more deals or yeah.
Yeah, because it adds that confidence, right?
Hmm.
It's sometimes ultimately not what you wear, it's how you feel in what you wear and how
Hmm.
you feel how you look and looking at yourself in the mirror and feeling confident and feeling like that superhero or whatever it is you
Yeah.
want to pin on it. But understanding that, it is what it is, right? You just gotta be yourself. And then if it happens, it happens. If it's not, it wasn't meant for you. That's it.
Yeah. And I will tell it's interesting because royal blue, I always tell everybody with the color of persuasion class, blue is a trust building color. If you want to build trust, wear blue. So that doesn't surprise me that that's like you're closing deals in that. So kudos to you. So
Thank
let's
you.
talk a little bit about your business. So what makes a good referral for you right now? What are you looking for?
Yeah, we primarily work on the little dog. I love my law firms that are trying to grow. So they're more in the small to mid. As long as they have 5 employees or more, I feel like that's a good team to have. And when I say employees, it could be a mix, right? It could be receptionists, paralegals, answering service, whatever it is, right? But there has to be a very cohesive team in order for our services and our products to really flourish and grow and be beneficial, right? Because we don't want to sell to somebody that we know we're not going to provide the results that we're promising. In this industry, we all know that reputation is everything. So
Mhm.
understanding that and being super aware of the type of clients that we serve, we've done our research and we know exactly what we need in order to really, give those results and continue our excellence.
Mhm.
So understanding that at least 5 employees or more, the practice, it doesn't really matter. We focus more on civil, just
Mhm.
because criminal is very, how do I say this nicely, unpredictable.
Mhm.
There's a lot of variables that we are unable to process, right? Even though there is a common thread in each, say, assault, felony, things like that, there's always elements that we can create a cohesive process. But
Mhm.
there's a lot of unknowns in there that we just are unable to control or predict. So we
Mhm.
haven't really solidified like a immigration or criminal because those are very unpredictable practices, even though they do have commonalities. They're
Mhm.
very unpredictable. So in order to streamline and really train someone, it's going to prove a little difficult.
Gotcha. And what about strategic partners? I know sometimes people have these and sometimes they don't. And for everyone who is tuning in and listening, if you're new to networking, the best way I could describe a strategic partner would be hot dogs and hot dog buns. You're not going to go to the store and buy one without the other. So they're complementing products. So do you find that you have a like well because you market to attorneys, do you find that you have like staffing agencies? Are they good referrals, like strategic partners for you, because you can
Yeah,
refer
so
back and forth? Or
right. The virtual realm has become a very big one, right? So we
Mhm,
have honed in, since we do focus on bilingual services because I
mhm,
am bilingual, and we convert and create templates in both English and Spanish. It's like a little added bonus you get with our consulting firm. We have partnered up with a few virtual paralegal service companies,
yeah,
that provide that type of service. So each and every person there speaks fluent English and Spanish, provides the services in English and Spanish. So, like you said, there are our bun to the hot dog. And
mhm,
so we have two of those companies currently. But for those that are not really looking for like a full-on staff, they just kind of need one person that, can really take on the caseload. We have partnered up with a paralegal firm that's a very good friend of mine. She's also our keynote speaker at the Limitless program coming up in March. And so we partnered up with her years ago, even before I created this whole massive firm. And I went ahead and we partnered up with her as well. And I sent her referrals and things like that. It just depends, right? It really depends on the law firm, their current needs, especially if it's temporary. They have
mhm,
somebody on FMLA and they just need somebody for 3 to 6 months. We have resources everywhere. We also partner up with Clio. Clio is a big one for us. We're Clio consultants. We're
mhm.
certified Clio consultants. I was at ClioCon as a speaker, so we do a lot of work with Clio. So especially if the law firm uses Clio, we're probably the perfect fit because we kind of know everything that's coming up and the pipeline, and we know how to create and integrate and all the things with Clio, and also my case. So as you said, strategic partnership is where it's at. I love partnering up with companies that can really be our bun to the hot dog. I'm going to use that forever now.
Yeah. I'm sure people who tune in every week, every time we release an episode, are probably like, "Oh, you need to come up with another analogy for that." But so, what types of situations, if anybody was listening and they're like, "Oh, wow, it sounds like Eda's got some great services," what types of situations or challenges are the prospects that are make good clients for you? What are they? Can you describe those? Like, is it a law firm that's growing? Is it a law firm that's struggling that can't hold on to employees? How would you describe the ideal situation that a client could be in for you?
Yes, all of it. So we help both. We do. We help the struggling attorney that's trying to fix their team, right? And trying to create a cohesive, efficient, effective, motivated team, right? We're all about the team. So if you're struggling, trying to keep it together and trying to get that cash flow in continuously, especially if you're on a contingency fee, like personal injury lawyers are most likely on contingency, where they're, investing a lot of money up front and then probably seeing a third of that at the end. You really want to keep track of your billable hours and you really want to keep track of your costs and things like that. So really creating that cohesive team process and operation is really prevalent. But also if you're in the middle of growth, right? You're in this pivotal moment where you're just like, I don't know if I need a manager, a paralegal, a legal assistant. Like, I don't know what I need because I have no idea what's going on right now. And so we're here, we do the data, we look at your data, we see what your processes are, we kind of give you an overall consultation, and then we kind of give you a roadmap. And then from there, if you want to continue with our services, we have add-ons and all the things. But we definitely have starter packages. I always tell people, don't be afraid to contact us. We do have a small package, mid and large. We understand that there is a budget for everything, but do realize that investing in your team is a big return on investment because they're going to bring you that tenfold once they're
Mhm.
up and running.
Great. And is there anything you'd like to share with the listening audience in closing? Any events coming up or anything at all that you would just like to share, before we close for the day?
Well, as you know, I have the Limitless Paralegal. We had to reschedule. It was originally for October, but we rescheduled it for March due to hurricane. I believe it was Milton. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it was because I was in Texas. But anyways, so we have that Limitless Paralegal program coming up, and I'm really excited about it. It's in one of my favorite places in South Florida. It's in this really nice, beautiful nature center. So we're gonna have that peaceful mindfulness practice first before we dive in and do a full-on workshop on how to upskill your career and your skills and how to really hone in on being an effective and proactive and more motivated legal professional, whether if you're running your own, practice or company like I am, or if you're in your career and you just want to grow in your career, it's for every type of paralegal out there, whatever you're looking for, our workshop is for you. As long as you're looking for growth, motivation, you want to be a better legal professional, the event's for you. We have about six speakers as well, all around the nation. We have somebody coming from New York. We have someone coming from Ohio. So we have everybody. Everybody's coming, and we love it and we appreciate it. But outside of that, I do want to provide your audience with a take home because I do this on my podcast, and I feel like it's very it takes the audience home and it gives them some homework, right? So I always
Mhm.
like to give somebody homework. And I would say, what is it? I'm going to give you two tips. What is it that you want to see in the next 1 to 5 years? Whatever it is, you give yourself that deadline. What do you want to see out of your career? If it's finances, find ways to multiply your skills, right? So, especially as a paralegal, you can multiply your skills in various ways. You can go into the marketing department, human resource. You can do events and, be a promoter for the law firm. There's so many things that you can multiply your skills and still stay within the same employment. That's what I did at the tail end of my career. I litigated the files. I did all the contracts, but I also attended all the events and represented my law firm. And I also promoted our law firm, all in, that one umbrella. And I was able to multiply my income because of that, because those are different pay brackets. So whatever it is, it's your vision, it's your view, it's your career. Think about it now and then start making actionable steps. My second one is where is it that you feel you can grow, right? Because we always like to like boast ourselves up. I'm so good at this. I'm such a great litigating paralegal. Oh my gosh. Like I can try a case in 2 seconds or whatever. And that's great. But we all have blind spots, right? And I've learned this in the last 4 years. I had a lot of blind spots, especially consulting with the law firm. There was one big blind spot that I had that I've never been a lawyer. And so I can't put myself in their shoes because I've never actually went into a courtroom in front of a judge to actually present a case. So those are the things that you need to understand that there are going to be blind spots and that you're going to have to learn more from people that are in those blind spots, right? That are living in those blind spots.
Mhm.
Learn and appreciate from other people that are in where you want to be or where you want to help. So what I did was when I found out about that blind spot, I started sitting down with attorneys in the courtroom. And then after they sat down, after talking to the judge, I would ask them questions, like random questions. And I would be like, how did that make you feel? Are you confident? If you could have done something different, what would it be? And they were looking at me like I was absolutely nuts. But I learned, right? I had
Yeah.
to learn. I don't know what they feel. I don't know what they go through. I
Mhm.
don't know what helps them prep for such an important and pivotal moment, especially when literally your client's life is on the line, whether it's a criminal, family, whatever it is. This pressure that our lawyers and managers and everybody goes through gets really lost in translation when we are in the supporting staff level. So once
Mhm.
you get into management and once you start going up the hierarchy, that's where you start realizing that, oh wow, I didn't really know what was happening up here. If I would have known this, I would have probably performed better because now I understand why they made these decisions. And partially that's not your fault because they didn't have those conversations with you. And partially that's not their fault because they were probably told not to. So, communication is key. when it comes to things that you want to learn. Curiosity did not kill the cat, it actually improved it. So understand that those two kind of go hand in hand and always stay curious.
Well said. And I love that you shared that in closing. And Eda, thank you for your time today. I loved having you as a guest. You shared so much great content. And I also want to let everyone know, too, if you want to connect with Eda, learn more about her business or more about the Limitless Paralegal Conference, or even the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast, click on any of the links in the show notes below to get in touch with her. And Eda, thank you again for being on the show.
Of course, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in today. I hope what we shared resonates with you and helps you in some way with your law firm. And again, if you'd like to be a guest, click on the link in the show notes below. I would love to have you on. You just need to fill that out so we can see if you are a good fit, and we will go from there. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. And remember, wear colors. Life is too boring without them.